Hello, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. My name is John Regan. I'm a product marketing manager here at Park Place Technologies, specifically working with the Entuity Software team. And I want to thank you for joining in us for this version 22 updates and changes video. Recently we've launched version 22 for Entuity. There's been some changes, some enhancements, and some new features. I'm joined here today with John Diamond and Pete Bartz, both architects on our team. They're going to take some time to walk through these different changes with you and provide you some updates on these new features and enhancements. So we'll go ahead and get the ball rolling straight away with tuning it over to John, who's going to walk through vulnerability monitoring with us to start, and then go into AWS and Azure.
Hey, thank you very much, John. We're going to dive into vulnerability monitoring first. This is a new capability, and it is administered through an administration page. I'm going to go straight there. And the general idea behind it is that it allows you to check equipment that you have under management. That could be network, server, storage, whatever the equipment is, against the NIST database. Now, NIST stands for the National Institute of Standards and Technology. It is an American government organization that maintains, among many aspects, a list of vulnerabilities of IT equipment. Now, that is held in the NVD, the National Vulnerability Database, and there's a couple of terms that acronyms that we're going to be using. I'll explain them now to get them out of the way. First of all, each of these vulnerabilities is described by what is called a CVE. That stands for Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures. In order to find the CVEs in this vulnerability database, you need to use a concept called a CPE. That stands for Common Platform Enumeration. Think of it as a tag that you attach to a piece of equipment or software. And you can attach multiple tags, and these are what actually are used to match against the vulnerabilities or those CVEs. A little later on, we'll have a little chat about Microsoft as well. And there's a term there that's going to be relevant, and that is the Microsoft Security Response Center, or MSRC. Very important when it comes to the Windows operating system. Okay, that said, the main page, the summary page that you're looking at the moment, shows the overall state of the system. It has finished doing its vulnerability scanning right at the moment, and that involved potentially synchronizing with the NIST database. When you first set this up, it's also going to involve downloading this NIST database, and then periodically, typically on a daily basis, you're going to be just bringing in updates, not the whole thing, just updates. The whole thing is about 2 gigs of data. So the initial download is going to take a little while. In order to configure that, there's the global settings, and all of the synchronization is performed by enabling the NIST download here. If you also want to pull in the Microsoft data, then that would be enabled here with the MSRC option. I'm not going to go through all of these options down here, but the general idea is that we maintain our own local copy of the NIST database and the Microsoft database of vulnerabilities. The matching of devices to CPEs can be seen against here with the device management tab. If I were to select a device, let's say this guy down at the bottom here, then you'll see that we've got 3 different CPEs assigned to it. These can be manually assigned, but there is also a level of automation available. You can set up what are called mapping rules, which allow you to set up a variety of logic to find appropriate CPEs, which there's a library of CPEs maintained by NIST for your equipment based upon a number of criteria, such as the vendor, the version, and various other things that you may want to match against. So you can set these rules up, and when you run a scan, the very first thing it does is it goes through these rules to try and figure out whether or not it's to put any new CPEs against your devices automatically. So you can see the ones that have been assigned here. Some of these are looking for the hardware. The H down here indicates that this is specifically looking at hardware. So that's looking at a Catalyst 2960 with a particular variant here included. And there are also ones, this O means operating system. This is matching a Cisco iOS operating system with this version here, which is the version running on this particular device. It's a very elderly device. So that's the idea of the CPEs. When you run the scan, once it's set these up, it will then try and match any of these against any of the CVEs it has in its local cache, its local copy of that NIST database. There's over 1.2 million items in that vulnerability database right at the moment. So it runs through and finds them for any vulnerability that it has not already told you about. By opening up an incident, it will open up a new incident. Here, for example, it's opened up 38 different incidents against this device. Now, if I were to go back to the homepage and take a look at a new dashboard that we have, and this one is the security analysis dashboard. There's two of these, one that works at the view level, which is what we're looking at the moment. This is showing all of the devices for which we have enabled the scanning. You have to enable them in that dashboard I showed you a moment ago in order that they get scanned, and the vulnerability incidents across all of them that have been found. You can drill down to a specific device, at which point you're going to see the security analysis dashboard for that device. You're going to see which CPEs are associated with it. Those were the ones I showed you a moment ago. And it's also listing out all of the currently open potential vulnerability incidents. Now, we say potential vulnerability because these are not necessarily real vulnerabilities. Just because you get a match in the NIST database doesn't mean you have to panic. That's definitely not the case. Many of these will not be applicable in your very specific circumstances, but some of them may be. Now, in this case, I'm just going to take one. This is listed as a critical one, so my eye is drawn to it. I'm going to look at the incident details. And very specifically, you're going to see the source, which is telling me exactly the identity of that CVE. That's its terminology, that's its identity within NIST. Additionally, you've got the event that caused it to be opened. If I were to look at that event, you're going to see here the specific CPE that matched that CVE, and down the bottom here, you've got the description of it, and that's pulled from a web page that you can look at in its entirety. If you open the link, it'll take you to the NIST website in the context of that particular problem, and that is all of the gory detail of that vulnerability. It'll tell you more about it down here, including all of the CPEs that it would match against. So that is general NIST matching against the NIST database. Let me just spend a moment to talk about what happens in the case of Microsoft, and particularly Microsoft Windows operating system. If you are including Microsoft Windows operating systems in your scan, you've marked them as enabled for vulnerability scanning, then In the base form of the scan, it will understand the version of the operating system, and it's going to flag every single vulnerability that would be in place had you never installed a hotfix. Now, of course, every diligent administrator of a Windows operating system is going to make sure that they're fully patched up to date with all of the hotfixes. That is where the integration to that MSRC database comes into play. That pulls in information about which hotfixes fixed which CVEs. So if you are synchronizing to the MSRC database, then it will identify those CVEs that we don't need to tell you about because you're already protected because you've got the right hotfix on. At which point, let me just show you that if I go down to a Windows operating system that I'm monitoring, if I look at the operating system itself and then go to the associations dashboard, you're going to see a new form of association. We pull in the hotfixes now. You can see every hotfix, what type of hotfix it was, when it was installed, and all of those are known per operating system that you're monitoring. And so that's where we correlated against the the MSRC database to make sure that we're not warning you about problems that have already been fixed. So that's the fundamentals of vulnerability monitoring. I'm going to take a moment now, change gears, and tell you about what we've been doing in the area of monitoring Azure and AWS. We've done an upgrade on both of those. The previous version, we did a major upgrade on our VMware monitoring. So we've now put the effort in and we've upgraded out the information we're pulling in on the Azure and AWS monitoring. If I were to go in and find an AWS account that I'm monitoring, you're going to see that we've got various different regions that are covered by this account. I'm going to go in and take a look at that last one here, and you will see that we've got a whole list of cloud servers which we have configured. Only these 4 are actually running. The other ones are currently disabled, and there's a whole heap of information at that level about them. If I were to go in and take a look at this one, for example, you're going to see an identification of the operating system and various other aspects. If this were fully instrumented, and this one is not, and that's a setting within AWS. If you configure AWS to be fully instrumented, you're going to be pulling in memory and disk utilization to accompany the CPU information that we've got here. You're also going to have storage information down the bottom here, which would be available. I'm going to switch over to take a look at what we've got going on with Azure. And here, there's a couple of different regions that we've got some cloud servers enabled. And you're going to see that if we were to drill into one of these, then this one is, well, that one is not fully instrumented. If I let's go and pick another one here. That one is instrumented, and here we've got CPU, memory, disk, and storage information available, all being pulled at the virtual server level. So all of that is there. Naturally, you can set thresholds on these, get events generated for excess utilization, for example, or storage running low. So with that, I'm going to pass you back to John.
Appreciate you walking us through all that information, JD. It's really great and good to see the way that the tool's evolving, as we continue to build out some of these new updates and features. We're going to go over to Pete now, and he's going to walk through with us configuration management and some of the enhanced monitoring elements in this latest version of Entuity.
Thanks, John. We've made some real nice changes and some enhancements in the area of configuration monitoring. And let's take a look at a number of them. They're certainly documented in the release notes and on the Help Center, but there's a number of them that I think are really valid to be able to show you. So one of the ones that I want to take a look at is, in addition to adding functionality for other devices, different manufacturers, we've got some additional Palo config monitoring capabilities, some more Cisco, some of the Sonic Wall, some F5 capabilities, in addition to other devices. These are things that are going to continue to go, get added to the product as we bring out new patches and new releases. But one of the things is a new configuration management task that allows you to, just from a Cisco perspective, go in and run specific commands. It's just a random run a bunch of commands over a Cisco device and make changes. So you can actually cut and paste multiple commands into a window. This is a standard method that's there. Certainly can be tuned as a custom task for other devices as well. But if I ran this will run just as a set of commands and give me the ability to see the output or make changes to devices. I think that's a really good one to highlight. In addition to that, we find that there are some devices that only have start configurations. So in my case here, I've got the traditional start and run configurations, but for some devices, you may only have a running config, and we've got support for that out of the box as well. Let's look at another one, and this is in the area of firmware monitoring, not firmware monitoring, but firmware management, and actually the repository that we've got for housing different firmware versions for network devices. And I'll show you what it looks like, because firmware capability has been in the product for a while. And if to get to it, you take a look at the configuration management and you'd go to the firmware section here. We've added the capability of adding folders. So instead of having a raft of firmware versions in the system that are really not organized, you've now got the ability to go in and create folders and subfolders, and then populate, different versions that are, either Cisco devices or, an old 1841 or 3550s or newer device platforms as you want to. If I went in and added a folder, I could just add in for something like a 9800, just label it properly, and then identify where I want to put it. So just identify it here, pick the selection and pick part of the tree that I want to add it to. Go ahead and name it and associate it, and it's there. So I can build some organization around different vendors. I can build organization around different models, different variants of firmware. Now populating, same basic process. I can go in and upload an image. Now I can drag an image over the top of this, or I can go in and look for images, however I want to. So I can pick an image here as well. I've got some warnings in this one. That's interesting. Oh, it already exists. So it's telling me that I've already got that image in place. But I can go in and upload images. I can drag them over the top. And when I do that, I can actually select the folder that I want to place it into. So I can place it in a folder and I'm all set. And I'm going to see all the images based on the tree structure and the folder structure that I've created. So again, it's just an enhancement to make it a little bit easier to organize the firmware that you've got in the system. Let's take a look at another feature. Now, this is one that goes back to policy management and policy violations. So in Entuity, we've had the facilities to alert based on policy violations. Policies has been in the product for quite a while. The ability to select the policies that have been in violation just by selecting this part of the menu here will show me the events. Now doing it this way is going to show me the events that have just taken place. But we've now got the facilities to see all the violations that have taken place on the system in one area. You don't have to rely on looking at the events or incidents dashboards to see that. Now to see that, the place to go to is going to be from the administration menu again and going down to the policy section. So we're looking at policies. This is where we actually create policies and create the definitions for my own system here. There's a new menu for policy history right here. So policy history, this is going to show me all the violations. This history is going to be maintained for a year. So the important part of this is I can look at violations that go back 6 months to a year to see what's actually happened on my system. And I can certainly filter by devices. I can report on this, and I can actually add this into other parts of the dashboards as well. This is a really good way to see the history in addition to just looking at the active alerts that are generated for a policy violation. I think with that, I'll turn it back over to John, and we'll take a look at the next topic.
Appreciate you walking us through that, Pete. We're going to go back over to John now and hear from him regarding some updates and enhancements to maintenance window alerting.
Okay, well, let me tell you about that. The general concept of maintenance windows, and in fact, I'll show that to you, is implemented through an administrative page. So this is what you've seen in previous releases. There's the maintenance mode, and you can create a new maintenance window, give it a name, and then configure a variety of aspects, including whether or not you want the events generated from the equipment that is covered by that maintenance window to be suppressed during the window or not. So here you would identify which devices are going to be within the window, when the window is going to happen, and whether or not you want those events suppressed. Now, the general idea with events in Entuity are that they are used to open and close incidents. So when you have a maintenance window active, if during that maintenance window a device were to go offline, it would normally generate a network outage event that would be blocked, and therefore you would not have the corresponding network outage incident raised for that device because it is permitted to have an outage because it's in the maintenance window. If it then came back online before the end of the maintenance window, then at the end of the maintenance window, any further outages that happen after that point, you would see. Now, the issue occurs when you have a problem that begins during the window, but is then ongoing at the end of the window. The problem has not been resolved by the time the window ends. Previously, those problems, because the initial event had been suppressed, you would not have a corresponding incident raised. Now, we will, at the end of the window, if the problem has not been cleared, it will open up the incident at the end of the window to say this problem is now no longer covered by a maintenance window and is ongoing. You need to deal with it. And if I were to show you the list of events that are covered here, these are the incidents and corresponding events that are used to raise them. This is all in the online documentation if you look under maintenance windows, but all of these network device related incidents are now covered by this new mechanism. If any of these problems happen during a maintenance window and are ongoing at the end, you're going to get this incident raised. So in other words, you won't be hidden from it, or it won't be hidden from you. You will hear about it at the end of the window if it is not yet resolved. Okay, John, that's what I was going to cover with the maintenance windows.
Great, and I think that's a great enhancement because you definitely don't want those alerts or issues hanging on, following through to when you're done in that maintenance window. So it's a good enhancement to see there. I'm going to go back over to Pete now, and he's going to walk us through web application management.
Thanks, John. So now again in Entuity 22, we've got the introduction of web application management, and we're focused on SSL cert monitoring. So we're looking at expiration monitoring for SSL certs. So this is one of the standard dashboards that we've got in the system. Certainly you can make custom dashboards that actually focus a little bit differently, but I'm listing the web applications that I'm currently monitoring, looking at all the individual URLs and identifying the number of days that it's taking before my certs are going to expire. So I'll talk about some of the event management side of this and the alerts that we're actually generating. But in order to make this and get this set up, the place that you want to start is going to be from the administrative pages. You'll see a new web application management menu here. Let's take a look at that, and let's look at the inventory of sites and URLs that I want to be able to monitor. I'm looking at a number of these, and effectively, just adding a web app includes adding in the URL or a list of URLs, because adding multiple URLs in here is something that you can do as well. By default, we're going to enable the certificate expiration polling. I'll just apply a name to that, and then from here you can see that I've got a number of examples. So if we edit one of these applications, again, you can just see that I've got the URL listed. Very easy to get set up and added into the system. So I've got a number of URLs I'm monitoring. You can see how many days before their certificates are going to expire and when their certificate expire dates are set. And we're monitoring these, again, on a regular basis. If we take a look at my dashboard again, or take a look at just one of the URLs, you can see that I've got an alert actually for Park Place. And I'm generating an alert, a warning alert. I can also generate a critical level alert based on threshold settings. But again, just like any other incident in the system, this is something that can be forwarded over to an ITSM or some type of a ticketing product. From a threshold perspective, I can individually set thresholds for the individual certificates, or I can just use a global out-of-the-box expiration timer. So I'm looking at 30 days in order to generate a critical alert. So once I fall less than 30 days from expiration, I'll generate a critical alert. Prior to that, just a warning alert to indicate that I've got 60 days to be able to get a new cert put in place. So again, easy to leverage, easy to add web applications, and again, certificate monitoring is just part of the system. With that, I'll turn it back over to John.
Awesome, Pete. Thanks for walking it through. And we're going to finish out our time today going back over to John for him to go and share with us a quick call out on servers and storage.
Absolutely. So let's take you to the relevant page here. If I were to go in and go to the asset management page, what I'd like to do is show you for servers and storage. If I were to add an asset, let me just show you the range of servers that we actually now support. So under the server category, we have got all the way from Cisco UCSs. So this is actually looking at the hardware, server hardware, all the way through a range of Dell equipment, Fujitsu, GRC, lots of HP, IBM, Intel, Lenovo, NVIDIA, Oracle, and Supermicro. We've also got operating system only monitoring, where you're not monitoring the hardware, you're actually monitoring the operating system. But all of that can be monitored at the hardware level. If I were to show you the storage options, then you'll see that, again, we've got a large range of Dell EMC equipment that can be monitored, HP 3PAR and other HP equipment, Hitachi, IBM, NetApp, Pure, and Quantum tape libraries, all available to be monitored, and that covers hardware and in a lot of cases performance monitoring as well. So with that, back to you, John.
Appreciate it. I think that covers off everything that I had on my list for the topics to cover this afternoon, gentlemen. Anything that I'm forgetting?
Nothing from me.
Great. Excellent. Well, thank you both so much for taking some time to walk us through Entuity with these new changes and updates. And we appreciate everybody taking the time to tune in and listen to this video. We hope that you found it helpful and informative. And of course, if there's any questions, feel free to reach out to our team and we'll be happy to support you. Thanks again for tuning in and take care.